Welcome this morning to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. I'm the Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore, and I minister here along with the Reverend Jay Brooks. You may have noticed some changes today. We are here in the social hall to accommodate our summer concert. This Unitarian Universalist congregation welcomes you, no matter where you are in your faith journey. Whether you are a believer or a doubter, a questioner, you are welcome here. Ours is a community which values and celebrates diversity. We believe that you do not need to think alike to love alike. We welcome you to join us as we seek to build a more just and joyful world. If you are a visitor, stop by our welcome desk in the main lobby after the service. If you are with us online, visit our website to learn more about Unitarian Universalism and the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. After the worship service, you are invited to our coffee hour, which is held both here in person and online. Today, we celebrate the voices, the creative spirit of those often unheard, overlooked, sidelines, those who also continue to persist. This time of worship is a companion to this afternoon's concert, which features the works of European women and African American women composers whose works are seldom performed today. Our annual Summer Orchestra Concert returns as an in-person event held at 1 p.m. today in the worship room, also here in the social hall, in the art gallery, on the grounds, everywhere. This is an opportunity to open your ears, your minds, your hearts to the beauty of the diversity all around us. Let us worship together. I will begin by lighting our chalice. Each Sunday, we light the chalice of our religious heritage. We do this for our ancestors who taught us through their various religious traditions and by their actions for justice and hope. We do this for our children who are learning the traditions we teach and who learn more from our actions than our words. We do this for ourselves so that we are inspired to remember our beginnings, reflect on who we are now, and spread our wings as we understand who we seek to become. I now invite you to join in saying our words of affirmation, which should be included in your order of service. Please rise in body or spirit. Love is a doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need. This we do affirm and covenant with each other. Please remain standing and put on your mask if you wish to sing our song of affirmation. Thank you. Please be seated. I want to share with you a reading. an acknowledgement that we are on the land of the native peoples of Long Island, the Shinnecock, the Manhasset, the Montaukett among them. Their voices have often been silenced in our public discourse. I want to share these words, the words of the poet and historian Olivia Ward Bush Banks, born in 1869, who died in 1944 and was a member of the Montaukett Nation. The poem on the Long Island Indian. How relentless, how impartial is the fleeting hand of time. By its stroke, great empires vanish, nations fall in swift decline. Once resounding through these forests, rang the war whoop shrill and clear. Once here lived a race of red men who knew no fear. Tall and haughty were the warriors. Strong and hardy were their women, full of beauteous, healthy grace. Thus they dwelt in perfect freedom, dearly loved their native shores, wisely chose their chiefs and sachems, made their own laws. But there came a paler nation, noted for their skill and might, robbed him of his native right. Now remains a scattered remnant. On these shores they find no home. Here and there in weary exile, they are forced through their life to roam. The sorrow and longing which Olivia Ward Bush Banks expresses remains for her people. And alongside this sorrow, the native peoples of Long Island and all over this continent are moving together to reclaim their homelands and to demand that their voices be heard. May we rise in solidarity with them. Please rise in body or spirit as you are willing and able to sing hymn number 1023, Building Bridges. We'll sing it twice.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Each Sunday, we take a special collection to support a nonprofit group which serves human need. Each summer, UUCSR has supported the school supply drive for children in need in the village of Hempstead. During July and August this year, your Sunday contributions will go towards this effort, this school supply collection. Members of the UUCSR Social Justice Committee will use the funds to purchase supplies and then deliver them. You might want to get in on that fun activity. The supplies will be distributed in late August by the Reverend Benjamin of ABBA, which is Able Body of Believers Alliance. They have a leadership center, and they will be helping the kids to pick out the supplies, which will help them to give a great start to their school year. You can make your contributions on our website or through PayPal or by text message. If you're on site, the donations box is right outside the social hall as you leave the room. This is not just an anonymous donation to unknown and unknowable people, but a gift to children in the communities right here near us. We can build relationships. We can benefit from the growth, learning, and creativity of these children and their families, who will bring their gifts and enrich our lives, our common life here on Long Island. We can make our congregation a wellspring of hope and generosity. Please give from your hearts as you can. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Matthew. I now invite you into a moment of silence, meditation, or prayer. Spirit of life, the divine presence which we know by many names, but which we all experience in faith, in hope, in love. Join us today as we come together in community and fellowship. I will light a candle for our suffering and grief, for the losses from fire and flood and heat around the world this summer, for the continuing wars and the pandemic which still remains among us, and also for our personal losses. we hold in care the families in this congregation who are in pain, those who are ill, those who are lonely, those who are separated from the joy of life in this moment. Especially those touched by the recent deaths of our fellow congregants, Bruce Smith and Robin Finnan Jones. May our loving community be a healing space for all. May all our voices be heard as we comfort one another. May it be so. Blessed be.
Shut me out of heaven. Did I sing too loud? But I can sing a little minor, timid as a bird. Wouldn't the angels try me just once more? Just see if I troubled them. But don't shut the door. Don't shut the door. Oh, if I were the gentleman in the white robes, and they were the little hand that knocked. Could I forbid? Could I forbid? Could I forbid? Why do they shut me out of heaven? Did I sing too loud?
Unheard voices. After the worship service today, our summer orchestra concert will feature the works of 3 women composers: Louise Farranc, Florence Price, and Margaret Bonds. Louise Farranc was a French composer, a pianist, a teacher. She died in 1875. As a female artist and composer of her time, she regularly received less support, less access, lesser pay. The other composers in the concert today are Florence Price and Margaret Bonds, who held three often marginalized identities. They were Black, women, and classical musicians. Florence Price lived from 1887 to 1953. She was the first African-American woman to be recognized as a symphonic composer, and the first to have a composition of hers played by a major orchestra in the United States. Margaret Bonds was Florence's friend and colleague. They spent some time actually living together and doing music together. Margaret was born in 1913 and died in 1972. So imagine what she saw and experienced as a musician over that time. Margaret and Florence challenged stereotypes in so many ways, not just about their musicianship, but about their backgrounds. They were both the daughters of Black professional fathers, a dentist and a doctor. Graduates of prestigious educational institutions, Northwestern University, the New England Conservatory of Music, the Juilliard School. Fluent in both European classical music and the Negro spiritual. These women held a both-and place, not an either-or place, a both-and place and space of abundance, an expansive space. They owned music in all its forms. They excelled and appreciated it in all its glory. These women chose the creative life at a time when women could be accused of being wrong for taking time away from their ordained roles as wife and mother, of working outside their abilities by trying to be above their place. I know that this sometimes still happens to women today. Race and gender discrimination almost erased the musical legacy of these women. So many doors were fastened and so many windows penned shut against them. These formidable artists must have known, they were intelligent women, they must have known how little they might be appreciated for their labors, and how their pay would not be equitable, and how audiences would be spare, and how a legacy could not be guaranteed for them, no matter their talent. Still, knowing this, they continued to let their spirits speak. They found support in one another. They found co-conspirators in creation. Can we be co-conspirators in creation, one to another? Can we stop the crushing othering that almost lost us the music that we will hear today? We can admire beyond measure the strength of these women, of all those who dig deep and strive to express themselves as they know deep in their souls that they can, even as the world around them rejects their gifts. How does it feel to have your gifts rejected by the world? How does it feel when you find someone who accepts your gifts? Perhaps these composers ask themselves the same question found in 1 Corinthians, where it says, "What shall I do?" And it answers, "I will pray with my spirit, but I will also pray with my understanding, with my mind. I will sing with my spirit, but I will also sing with my understanding, with my mind." We can all sing with both our spirits and our minds, knowing clearly the costs of our expressing ourselves, but knowing how it fills our spirits with joy, knowing that our gifts should not be wasted. We can hope that we also find the support we need to make our voices heard. Have you found that support here? Can you be that support for another here and now? Our community exists to provide such support, to be a place of gift giving and gift receiving. While the works of the composers we will hear may not be performed often, it was powerful for me to see the number of works that they produced. Their voices could not be denied. Music poured from them in a flood of creativity. 49 compositions attributed to Ferenc, over 200 compositions by Margaret Bonds, over 300 compositions by Florence Price. Some of these works are no longer available. They've been discarded or lost or long abandoned. Indeed, works by Florence Price were found as late as 2009 in boxes in an abandoned summer house in St. Anne, Illinois. There may be countless treasures waiting somewhere for us to find. All sorts of music poured from these women, and though some turned away from their voices in their lifetimes, we're going to take a deep listen this afternoon, reclaiming them, receiving their gifts. And why should we do that? What calls us to visit these works anew? Why listen to these so often unheard voices? I think it's because we know that each person has an inherent worth and dignity, that we are called to recognize and treasure the creativity of each person and the dignity of their work, and more. I believe that we want to have a Unitarian Universalism that is defined by our faithfulness to include as much singing and dancing and rejoicing and celebrating and moving to life's music as we can manage. As it says in the Psalms, make a joyful noise. And I don't think that means just make music or even sing or even dance or even be creative. I think that we are called to be, to make our lives a thing of note, to be ourselves, to praise creation by living fully and taking on our own part of creation. How much music is in you? How much music needs to come out of you and be active in the world? Don't hide your light under a bushel, because each of us has a unique contribution to make in the world. When we deny anyone their voice, we also deny ourselves what they have to offer to us. This thing, which will never come again, is being offered to us. If we don't stop and pay attention, if we don't hear it and see it and appreciate it, it will pass and never come again. How much has been lost in that way? A thing of beauty offered and not seen. A song not heard and never to come again. We need to tune our ears and open our hearts to a greater range of voices, of sounds, of stories. We must receive the gifts we have long underrated and foolishly denied ourselves. There is this famous story, the story of Marian Anderson, the celebrated American contralto, who is said to have a voice that might be heard only once in 100 years. In 1939, Howard University booked a concert for Marian Anderson. She was already famous around the world, and they were looking for an auditorium big enough to hold the large audience they expected would come to hear Miss Anderson. So they tried to book and were denied the use of the 4,000-seat Daughters of the American Revolution, DAR, Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. The hall had a white performers-only policy. They denied Marian Anderson because she was Black. They were willing to deny themselves the chance to hear a once-in-a-century voice because that voice came from a Black woman's body. There were protests. Eleanor Roosevelt resigned her membership in the DAR in protest, in solidarity. As President of the United States, Franklin Roosevelt approved the Department of the Interior's invitation to Marian Anderson to sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And she sang in the shadow of the statue of Abraham Lincoln in front of 75,000 people. She stood, one person, alone, closed her eyes, and sang, "My country, 'tis of thee." And one voice, making a way for another. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood on those same Lincoln Monument steps in 1963 when he gave the I Have a Dream speech. There's another really important thing to remember about this story. Eleanor Roosevelt, the First Lady of the United States, took a risk. She stepped outside the expectations of her race and her class. She might have lost status. She probably did lose friends. Eleanor Roosevelt lifted up the ideals of justice and equality and an expansive and inclusive democracy. She decided that she needed to hear the voice. She could not let it remain unheard. There is a risk to being an ally, as there was for Roosevelt, a risk to being an accomplice in doing the good work. But we have to agree that it's worth taking the risk. It's a risk that can help to change the world. You can step up to support an unheard voice. Can you do that? Can you take that risk and then take another step, do more? Support the person and then step back. The person you are supporting should be able to speak, to write, to sing, to create, to live for themselves, to make their own needs and desires in determining their actions lead their actions. Can we build a community which both supports but does not control the voices of those who are often marginalized? You have within you, each of us does, we have within us our own music of the Spirit. It is our life's work to pour it out into the world. We cannot afford to leave it unheard. Each of us has something to give that is needed, that is essential to this world. Something that is of value as we are of value, that is precious as we are precious. It needs to be offered, and it needs to be received. Our interconnection means that we are all the lesser if we leave any voices unheard. We are all the lesser if we leave any voices unheard. So, may we listen well. Please rise in body or spirit as you are willing or able for our closing hymn, number 1059, May Your Life Be As a Song. Before our closing words, I want to remind you that the concert today is at 1 o'clock. There will be refreshments at the concert, and there will be some munchies after the service. So feel free to linger if you like, walk the grounds, have some fellowship, or if you'd like to stay here until 1, you're perfectly welcome. If you'd like to go home and come back, do that, but remember there will be a parking issue. So I offer you these closing words by Audre Lorde. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the distant edges of decisions crucial and alone. For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice. For those of us who were imprinted with fear like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid from our mother's milk. For by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises and we are afraid it might not remain, and when the sun sets, we are afraid that it might not rise in the morning. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard or welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak. Remember, we were never meant to survive. And so now I extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.